Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you've ever had a run-in with a nosy neighbor, a power-hungry HOA, or just love a good story about standing up for yourself, you're in the right place. Today I've got a tale that's equal parts petty, hilarious, and, honestly, a little bit inspiring. So grab your snacks, settle in, and let's dive into the saga of how a tiny garden gnome sparked an all-out neighborhood war. You ever get fined for something so ridiculous, you just have to laugh? Well, I did. And instead of backing down, I decided to go big. Like 12 feet tall can be seen from space big. But before I get into the details, let me take a moment to wish something special for you. If you're watching this, I just want to say a quick prayer for you and your loved ones. May you be protected from unnecessary drama, may your days be filled with peace, and may you always have the courage to stand up for what's right, even if it means building a giant gnome in your front yard. Amen. All right, let's set the scene. I live in a neighborhood where the HOA is, let's just say, enthusiastic. You know the type, measuring grass with a ruler, sending out violation letters if your mailbox is a shade off from approved beige. But the real star of our show is Karen, the self-appointed queen of the HOA. Clipboard, sunglasses, and a walkie-talkie. She's got the whole starter pack. Now, I'm not a troublemaker. I mow my lawn, I keep my trash cans hidden, and I wave at my neighbors. But I also have a sense of humor. So when I found a little garden gnome at a yard sale, red hat, fishing pole, big goofy grin, I thought, why not add a bit of personality to the flower bed? I mean, who doesn't love a gnome? It's like a little guardian for your petunias. Fast forward 2 days, I come home to a bright yellow envelope taped to my door. HOA violation, unauthorized lawn ornament. I kid you not. The letter said my gnome was distracting, unsightly, and not in keeping with the community aesthetic. The fine? $50. For a gnome the size of a loaf of bread. Now most people would just pay the fine, maybe move the gnome to the backyard. But not me. I decided if Karen thought my gnome was a problem, I'd give her a real problem. I mean, if you're going to be petty, you might as well be legendary, right? So, I hit the internet. I started researching giant lawn ornaments, custom sculptures, and, yes, oversized gnomes. Turns out, you can commission just about anything if you're willing to pay for it. I found a local artist, showed them a sketch and said, "Can you make this, but huge?" They grinned and said, "How huge are we talking?" I said, "Let's make it taller than Karen's fence." A few weeks later, a flatbed truck rolled up with a 12-foot-tall garden gnome. This thing was epic. Red hat, blue coat, and in his hands, a giant stone tablet with the entire HOA rulebook engraved on it. I positioned him right in the middle of my yard, facing Karen's house. You couldn't miss it. It was like the Statue of Liberty, but for passive-aggressive homeowners. Let me tell you, the installation was a show. Neighbors peeked through their blinds, kids rode their bikes by 3 times just to stare, and even the mailman stopped to take a selfie. I could practically feel Karen's blood pressure rising from across the street. The gnome's face had this mischievous grin, like he knew exactly what he was doing. And the best part, the stone tablet he was holding had every single HOA rule, carved in bold letters, right there for the world to see. Pause. If you've ever wanted to get back at a petty neighbor, drop a comment below with your best story. Or just type Team Gnome if you're on my side. And hey, if you're enjoying this, hit that like button so the algorithm knows Karen can't keep us down. The next morning, I'm sipping coffee when I hear a shriek from across the street. Karen is standing on her porch, mouth open, sunglasses askew, staring at the gnome like it's about to come to life and start reciting bylaws. Within an hour, I get another violation notice, this one in all caps. Remove the giant gnome immediately. This is a serious infraction. But here's the twist. I'd read the HOA rules cover to cover. Nowhere did it say anything about maximum gnome height. In fact, the only rule was no unauthorized lawn ornaments. But my gnome was holding the rules. I argued that he was, in fact, a public service, reminding everyone of the community guidelines. Karen was furious. She called an emergency HOA meeting. I could see her pacing in her living room, phone glued to her ear, probably calling every board member she could find. The next day, the whole board showed up at my house, looking like they were about to stage an intervention. The meeting was legendary. Neighbors showed up, some out of curiosity, some just to see the gnome. The room was split. Half the people thought it was hilarious, the other half were just glad someone finally stood up to Karen. I presented my case. If a 6-inch gnome is a violation, but a 12-foot gnome isn't specifically banned, where do we draw the line? The board was stumped. They tabled the issue for further review. Meanwhile, the gnome became a local celebrity. People started taking family photos with it. Someone put a scarf on him when it got cold. Kids left little notes at his feet, like he was some kind of magical wish-granting statue. Even the local paper did a story. Neighborhood Gnome Sparks HOA Showdown. In the end, the HOA decided to rewrite the rules. No more gnomes, big or small. But here's the kicker. Existing ornaments were grandfathered in. That means my giant gnome holding the HOA rules is now a permanent fixture. Karen, she's still mad, but the rest of the neighborhood loves it. People take selfies with the gnome. Someone even put a little hat on him for the holidays. And Karen, well, she's a little quieter these days. She still glares at me from her window, but I just wave and smile. Sometimes I even put a little lawn chair next to the gnome and read the HOA rules out loud, just for fun. So what's the moral of the story? Sometimes the best way to deal with petty rules is with a little creativity and a lot of humor. Stand your ground, know your rights, and never underestimate the power of a well-placed garden gnome. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with a friend who needs a laugh. And remember, may your neighbors be friendly, your gnomes be giant, and your days be drama-free. Stay safe, everyone.